He wants you for a best friend. Here's your look at the new Mezco toys. This is Child's Play 3, Talking Pizza Face Chucky. The Child's Play 3 Talking Pizza Face Chucky stands 15 inches tall and features an all-new head sculpt depicting Chucky's mutilated face after a run-in with the Grim Reaper's scythe in Devil's Lair. Just as he did in the film, Chucky has lots to say from his trademark "Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend till the end" to far more sinister phrases. Sporting his signature good guys overalls and striped shirt, Chucky features 11 points of articulation, his trademark orange hair, and realistic glass eyes. He comes complete with a gun that fits neatly into his right hand. Now, obviously, before we get this review underway, I know the packaging touted its heights, but I always like to be efficient myself. Don't you like to be efficient? I like to think we all like to be efficient. We're going to go ahead and take the tape measure. I'm going to take it right to the very top of Chucky's head. The Pizza Face Chucky, according to the Ultra Measure 5000, stands 14.4, almost 14 and a half. I guess you really could give it the pass. It could be a 14 and a half tall figure. But how does that translate to centimeters? Let me go ahead and do that right now. You're looking at Chucky, Pizza Face Chucky, standing 36.7 centimeters tall. Just for some fun size comparisons, there he is next to the super deformed deluxe vinyl series. What do they call these things? The little smaller Chucky that we already had a look at, which so happens also to be a pizza face rendition. It seems to be the common trend right now to release Chucky in his various different sizes and designs, all sporting the pizza look. You can see the taller, much taller, talking Chucky to the much smaller one we've already looked at before. The talking doll does come included with one accessory, a very small hand pistol. Pistol's pretty thick, pretty substantial. I mean, obviously it has to be for the size of Chucky. Is it necessarily to scale? I don't really feel like it is, but I mean, at least it's something that Chucky can hold in his hand. A very broad-handled pistol, a very small top to it. It looks like it's been done primarily in all black plastic. I guess that would be not primarily, all black plastic and painted in silver. It looks okay, and again, it's for the purpose of it holding in his hand. And does it successfully hold in his hand? Well, we can do this right now. Just gonna put it in. I find it's easier to put it in on an angle myself and then kind of pop it in a little further and then twist it around. It does its pretty good enough job of getting the trigger finger, this one right here, around the trigger of the pistol, this trigger right here. And I guess it's something that you can display the figure with, because if you don't, he does kind of have just like a pointing finger, like he's just pointing at whatever. I guess you could have it pointing out to a reminder board or a chalkboard, something that you may have in your room to remind you, oh right, yeah, Pizza Face Chucky tells me today's garbage day. Thank you, Pizza Face Chucky. So there's that. That's the only accessory it comes included with, so we can go ahead and take this out of his hand. Obviously, this is a talking Chucky, so some assembly of batteries is required, but rest assured the folks over at Mezco Toys have already very nicely included 3 LR button cell, that would be LR44 button cell batteries. And I'll show you how they're located or where they're placed. They're actually right here between the cross straps of his coveralls. And we just kind of open it up right here. There's two snaps. There's a snap, 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 and snap. And then there is your speaker. There is your button. This will, of course, sound through the various different audio clips that Chucky possesses. There's an on, there's an off, and then there's a try me. And located a little bit further down, there are the location points for the 3 LR44 batteries. Again, like I said, it's already included. You don't have to worry about that just yet. Again, when you're finished up shop, make sure you kind of tidy up for the day. And you just want to close up those snaps just so that they're not as visible. And let's hope through the process of doing that, I don't accidentally sound off the audio clip. Whoosh. Okay, we'll just kind of tuck that in, clean it up, trying to make it look all nice and presentable. And let's have a look at the figure, and then Promsies will cycle through his various different audio clips. He actually has a fair bit, actually. As for the head sculpt, now this is Child's Play 3 Chucky. So of course he's branding the shorter coif of hair. It's done in orange and it's acceptable. At least it's fairly rooted. I mean, you can kind of pull away multiple bunches of hair. You don't necessarily see huge bald spots, which is one good thing. To the credit of Mezco Toys, they always really root these doll hairs quite well on their Chucky figures. Some of them are questionable. We've certainly seen questionable cases and examples in previous Talking Chuckies, as I think I've pretty much by this point now covered every single one of them. If you guys want to go back and have a look at some of those other ones. I think the Bride of Chucky probably was the worst. Not only did it have the receding hairline, which it did have in the film, but I do recall like the hair being just terrible. Here, though, as a credit to Mezco, the hair is actually rooted quite well, and the color is suitable for his face. It's a suitable Chucky red or Chucky orange. He does have, of course, the sported Good Guys coveralls with all the notable details of all the tools of the trade and the various career options that your Good Guys doll could pursue. Doctory, for example, and carpentry, and I guess if you want to be a cowboy, you can do that as well. So again, it's all accurate to the way it looks in the film, complete with the collar cuffs down below. And the shoes, which always seem to look quite off yellow to me. I feel like they could be a little bit whiter. The undersoles are accurate to the film as well, leaving his calling card, if you will, everywhere he steps and presses his foot against. So I like that, and at least that is fairly accurate there as well. Pretty much head to toe, well, that's not true. I could really ideally scratch that part of the review. Neck to toe, it's not a bad looking Chucky. Not really bad at all. Of course, my problem and my ongoing problem with any of these Talking Chucky figures is that they really don't look all that much like Chucky. Granted, yes, I understand it looks like Chucky from the standpoint you look at it. You're not going to obviously confuse it for anything else. But film accuracy is not something that Mezco Toys often treads into. Times when it comes to even like the smaller scale, and again, here we'll bring in the the deformed series, deluxe series, vinyl series of Chucky. Even like this pizza face version of Chucky, I can kind of surrender to the idea that it looks a little bit more like a stylized, kind of cuter, animated version of Chucky. I can kind of dismiss it for that. This brand, this extension of their line, the deformed series of vinyl figures, all kind of have shared similar looks to them, so you can kind of dismiss it for that. Unfortunately, though, I find maybe unnecessary, I don't know, it's possible, I find myself getting a little bit more nitpicky when it comes to the taller figures, because really they have all the working points. There's potential here for this to really be a good-looking Chucky figure. And ultimately, I feel like every single time I'm looking at these deluxe Talking Chuckies, ultimately the stopping point of this looking like a screen-used replica ultimately always gets surrendered right around the head area. So again, we'll have a look at the head. The head, like I said, isn't terrible, but if you really would want to put this side by side, an image maybe right here would have been helpful, side by side to show what Pizza Face Chucky looked like in the film and what Mezco's take on Chucky is right here. And again, I understand the fact that this is only about $100 or so figure. I mean, if you obviously wanted to spend the extra nickels and dimes to buy yourself a good substantial replica of Chucky, there are ones out there. But for mass production, I always really hope that Mezco either will surrender over the Chucky line and the licensing for it, or just improve their sculpts. Because again, it looks good if you accept for the fact it's a little bit more of a simplified Chucky. It doesn't look as much like it did in the film. Am I being overly harsh? Maybe I'm being overly harsh. I mean, again, the face doesn't look terrible. You've got all the things that you would expect Chucky to have, like, for example, the painted and eyebrow slashes, the little substantially field of freckles that are making their way across his cheeks. Of course, not here at all because it's been completely mangled. And of course, he's got his visible teeth. Nice little discoloration. We're going to try to talk positives here. Can't all be negatives after all. The painting around his teeth are a nice touch just to kind of make those pop a little bit. And the eyes actually are nicely done. I like the kind of glass. Well, I mean, the packaging touts it as glass eyes, and I would cement and reassess, re-agree, I guess. Reiterate. Producers are telling me we can go with reiterate. Reiterate? Reiterate. We can reiterate the fact that those are decent enough glass-looking eyes. I like that if you tilt it ever so slightly to the side, you can kind of see like a little white star formation on the inside there, kind of just giving a little bit of depth and a little bit extra life to those eyes. So that's a positive. There we go. The hair is also a positive. Let's mark that on a checklist as well. Positives and negatives. The costume is good. You know, the fact that he's posable and the fact that he has audio clips are all positives. His hair is good and his eyes are good. And overall, I mean, paint on this guy isn't bad at all either, but again, it just doesn't feel as much. I couldn't put this along with movie replicas and argue the fact that this guy looks just as good as the movie replicas. Again, am I being harsh for a $100 figure? Possibly I am. You guys can let me know down below. Another positive, though, is the fact that he's got the haft face, kind of like a Phantom of the Opera face happening here, where you can just see just a mangled mess of spaghetti. They really actually should have called this guy, or coined this guy, because along the way this guy was coined Pizza Face. I actually would have coined this guy rather instead Spaghetti Face. He looks very much more like spaghetti. Ooey gooey, slimy, bloody spaghetti than I probably would call him Pizza Face. There's a fair bit of depth in there as well. You can kind of see the strands in the foreground, but then if you look really closely, there's a whole lot happening in the background there as well. Like, you could stick your finger in there, and providing you have thin enough elf-like fingers, you could probably go all the way to the back and feel the back cavity of his head. Again, it's really neat. And I like almost that it seems like his eyes just sitting there by all the tendons and stuff that are kind of holding it in place. Just barely holding it in place. Even like the areas of the teeth stretch far enough back, actually. They don't just stop here. In fact, you can kind of see that they continue their way all the way back. So again, nicely done right there. Again, I really don't want this review to reflect something that is negative. At the end of the day, it's a nice looking Chucky. Don't get me wrong. The problem is, though, again, I kind of feel like Mezco kind of go the route of making these guys look more cartoony than they do actually make them look realistic. I don't know if it just kind of boils down to the sculptors that they have in place. Ultimately, again, a character like this and a size that he is, would love to see maybe even NECA, you know, which we've seen with NECA retro cloth figures. Some of them are really quite good. Love to see what they could have done with a taller scale figure. Again, taking nothing necessarily away from Mezco. You kind of go into it. You firmly leap, splashing into the waters of Mezco toys, kind of knowing what you're expecting. I mean, based on, this isn't my first rodeo, this isn't my first talking Chucky. So I kind of know right from the beginning that when you go into the idea of getting these talking Chucky dolls, they're not the most movie accurate, but they do a good enough job, I guess, for what they are. Take that with a grain of salt. All right, let's have a look at this guy's articulation. I know I'm kind of I'm on kind of treading in the middle. People are probably asking themselves, where is this guy standing, whether this is actually a good figure or a bad figure. I'm kind of in the middle of it. There's positives to it, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's not the most movie accurate. And that's all I'll say about it. The arms rotate technically all the way around. I mean, they do get a little hung up on the fact that the fabric will continue to tighten itself around those shoulder areas. And the arms also hinge outward as well. You can also rotate at the forearm. There is nothing, well, there's a arm swivel, but there's not an arm bend. So you can't necessarily bend Chucky's arms. Not really sure why they have to swivel at the arms and swivel at the hand, because really it's accomplishing basically the same thing. There is no waist swivel because basically all this stuff will be tied up with electrical wires and mechanisms inside that allow him to speak. His legs go forward and back. You cannot quite split them out, so you're only really relegated. And you're also relegated to an out swivel. What do I mean by that? Well, you can kind of see what I mean by that. The legs don't swivel forward and back. Instead, what they do is they sort of swivel out and forward, if you know what I mean, or forward that way. The feet also do swivel, and there's no other additional leg articulation. So there's Chucky in a nutshell, and of course we can't also forget his head. His head is on a ball joint, and it's by rotating the head that, again, you kind of get that feel and vibe that he is a real doll. Okay, so let's have a look at this guy's audio clips. And we already kind of saw where the audio clip button is. It's right there. You can kind of feel it sticks out from everything else. Go ahead and press the button.
Sorry, kid, you got me. I'm bad. So, what's your name, kid? I'm new and improved. My real name is Charles Lee Ray. Hey, long time no see, pal. Man, I really gotta get out of this body.
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end.
Sorry, kid, you got me. I'm bad.
So he cycles through about 6 different phrases. If you set Chucky to the initial try me button, or just leave him in the try me button option, then he only cycles through like 1 or 2 phrases. The trademark, I'm your friend till the end, and then he cycles through 1 other as well. To switch it over to on, gives you the full spectacle of Charles Lee Ray, giving you about 6-7 phrases to cycle through. Again, he's a decent enough figure. He's got good poseability. He has at least a fabric outfit, and he conveys the idea of Chucky as a doll. Does he convey, though, a realistic replica of Chucky? Not so much, no. The Child's Play 3 Pizza Face Talking Chucky from the folks over at Mezco Toys is rather a good example of how it can be difficult at times reviewing things on YouTube. Sure, you want to be honest. You don't want to be biased to the fact of whatever the item is you're looking at based on a company that happened to have produced it, or the fact that you like the source material in which the character is based from. You still have to be honest with it. And often at times, and I'm guilty for this as well, you kind of within the spectrum of what these things are, want to then grade and review it solely based on that. And what do I mean by that, in case that didn't quite make any sense? If I review, for example, a NECA figure of something, let's say NECA produced a Superman figure, which they really will be doing in a San Diego Comic-Con release. Follow along with me if you can. If I review one of those, I'll base it off of the sculpt and likeness. Now, if I compare that to, say, a Mattel Batman v Superman, obviously it's a night and day comparison. So often at times what I try to do is I try to be honest to what that company produces. So Mattel obviously won't have as good of a likeness as what NECA produces, so I kind of have to review it in the spectrum of, okay, this is a Mattel figure, and based on what Mattel usually releases, and usually what we get, what we're familiar with, what they're doing, then I can kind of base a review around that. Is it a good likeness, for example, of Henry Cavill? Not necessarily, but based on what Mattel produces, it's not a bad-looking figure. Now, I know that doesn't really have any merits when it comes to Child's Play Chucky, but it sort of does reiterate what I wanted to talk about with the Mezco toys. You can kind of see where it's a bit of a struggle. In all honesty, does this look like a movie replica of Pizza Face Chucky? It really doesn't. It looks like a more simplified, cartoonier version of Charles Lee Ray. But based on what Mezco produces, and again, when you buy these pieces for yourself, there really shouldn't be any bit of a wake-up call when you open these out and think, wait a minute, this doesn't quite look like a movie replica. No, it doesn't. You can pay a little bit extra and get a true movie replica of a lot of these pieces, and they're usually done by independent artists selling their crafts on the side. So looking at this and being not biased by it and being completely honest, does it look like Pizza Face Chucky. It looks enough like Pizza Face Chucky based on, not the limitations necessarily, but based on what Mezco normally produces. If you picked up enough of the Mezco pieces by this point, you kind of know that they're a little bit more of a simplified sculpt. They're not the most realistic, but it kind of gets the point across for, like I said, $100 talking Chucky. This one isn't bad, and I do like the fact it does have a pizza face look to it. That half mutilated face that seems to be the popular trending thing right about now. But hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully that kind of explains a little bit of my reluctancy in this review. On the one end, is it a realistic take on Chucky? Not really. For what Mezco is producing, though, I think it's a decent enough looking sculpt, and actually one of the better ones that they've produced of the talking Chuckies, if that makes any bit of sense. Let me know down below, guys, what you think of the new Child's Play 3 Pizza Face Chucky. Are you kind of on the same wavelength as me? You know, again, for what Mezco's standards are, and I don't really want to diminish Mezco at all. Mezco produces they're one of the few that are producing Child's Play pieces. Again, they're the ones that currently are holding the licensing for it. But really, based on Mezco's releases, what you guys think of the Pizza Face Chucky? I always like reading your comments down below, and I always try my best to reply to every single comment that you guys put in these comments sections. So always let me know down below what you guys think of the pieces that I review. Was I fair? Not so fair? Let me know. We can discuss and digest it. We can kind of throw it back and forth like a tennis game. Either way, though, today we were having a look at the new Mezco Toys Child's Play 3. This was Pizza Face Chucky. Even though it didn't actually list it on the front, you only saw it from flipping around the back of the box. Now, if you guys are interested in checking out some more Mezco toy reviews, there's playlists on this channel for those. And also, if Chucky is your thing, and above all else, you just really want to watch more Chucky reviews, then there's a playlist just for Chucky. I like Chucky too, so had to make a playlist for it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't done so already. Turn on the bell notifications if you haven't done so already. And stay tuned, which is still something you'll have to do because future videos will be coming soon to this channel. So stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching, guys, as you always do. And I'll see you guys next time.